Hello everyone. Today I'm going to do the 18th question of my database management systems question list, and let's go to the question list. Here you can see under the day 5, here's the question 18. I'm going to read the question and then answer for this question. But before, I have to tell you we continued we are still continuing the question we started to answer in the question 15, question 16, and you have to watch the previous two videos in order to understand what I'm doing today. So if you didn't watch that videos yet, please go watch that videos. And today, here's the first one. First question: enter the data in the table below to the class table. Okay. We have to enter some data into the tables we created in the previous videos. But let me open the workbench software. You can see we only created the ER diagram in the previous video. We completed the ER diagram, but we didn't create the database by using this diagram. So I'm going to create the database first and then insert that data. Okay, let's create the database using this ER diagram. For that, I did this in my previous videos. Click on the database button, and then here's the forward engineering method. I'm going to use the forward engineering method, not the synchronized model. I explained what are the difference between these two methods in my previous videos. In this case, we are creating the database freshly, or there's no database under this new database name. So that means we have to create a new database. For that, I'm using the forward engineering method. You can see here you have to give the credentials to access the MySQL server, and then press next, then again next, and here's the DDL query which will execute in a moment, and then create our table. And here you can see our forward engineering finished successfully. It means you can close this dialog box. Our database should create now. I'm going to show the details or show the database by using HDSQL browser. You can also watch that data using the same workbench software we are in, but I'm going to use HDSQL browser. Here's our connection to the database. I'm going to refresh this one. Okay, here you can see exam mark DB. We created this table, this database, and here are the tables inside that database. And let me go to the question. Here's the first one: enter the data to the class table. You can see there are two records we have to insert to the class table. First one is the grade name, grade ID 1, and the grade name, grade 11, and second the ID 2 and the grade 11B. Okay, let's go to our class table. You can see here's the class table, and here are the attributes inside that table. I'm going to add data. I'm going to use the graphical method, not the query method, to insert this data. So here's the button we are using to insert new rows. And here's the first row. Here's the first value, number 1 and 11A and 11A. Okay, here's the second record, number 2 and 11B. Okay, here we entered those two details to our class table, and let's move on to the second part. Enter the data in the table below to the student table. Okay, we have to enter another set of data to the student table. Here's the student table. Here's the student table. I will fast forward this clip and enter these details, and let's see what we have to do in the next part. Okay, here I entered all the details to the student table. Let's go to our question and see what are the next steps we have to follow. Enter the data in the table below to the subject table. Okay, we have to enter this table to the subject table. Let's enter those details. Here's the subject table, and first record is number 1 and mathematics. Okay, here's the second one, science. Okay, here we entered data into the subject table, and here's the fourth one, enter the data in the table below to the exam term. Okay, here we are entering data to the exam table. Here's the first record, first term, and here's the date. March 15. Here's the last one. Okay, here we entered that records to the exam table, and let's here's the last one in this question. Enter the data in the table below into the table name student exam mark. Okay, let's enter these details to the exam term, exam marks, and here's the table student exam mark record. I'm going to fast forward this clip and let's enter these details. You can see there's an error showed when I entered the details. Here's the error. Here's an SQL error. Duplicate entry STU001 for key student exam mark record primary. Okay, this is an error we showed when there's some kind of a duplication happened in our database. You can see the these golden key marks defines that these attributes are the primary key, but usually there should be only one primary key in a table, but you can see there's two keys showing the primary key mark. That's because let me go to the the database, sorry, the ER diagram we created. You can see the student index number and the student subject ID are foreign to the student exam mark table. When we define a one-to-many relationship between student table and the subject table, you can see we use identifying an identifying relationship when we are defining the one-to-many relationship. That's why these keys are showing the primary key mark, because these key both of these are working as a compound key to identify the duplications in this table. But here you can see there's no error in these values, but the matter is we entered the first student is, whose index number is STU001, and then subject is mathematics. I am inserting the marks belong to the mathematics subject in the first term, and here we completed that one, and then I was to enter the second details, actually the marks of the second term, and you can see the error was showed because the index number and the student ID, subject ID is duplicated in this table, but actually we have to define another we have to add another key to the compound key, because there's no primary key in this table. The primary key is defined as a compound key, but in this case we have to duplicate student name and the subject name when we are storing data. You can see the exam term ID. When we are defining the term, the exam term ID is only showing the foreign key mark. Here's the green key mark. That means it will not affect to the duplication of the judgment of the duplication of this table. So we have to add this attribute to this compound, as we have to add the primary key of exam term ID as the compound key too. So there should be three keys which defining the which are work as a compound key. So for this one, we have to use the synchronized model. I talked about this synchronized model earlier. We already entered many details or many records into our table. If we use forward engineering method, we can do some changes to the ER diagram and use forward engineering method. If we use that method, all the data will be lost, because the complete database called student mark DB will be dropped or deleted, and then a new database which have the changes or the updated changes will be inserted or created in the database in the database list. So all the data will be lost to the database, and we have to add them again. But if we use the synchronized model, it will not affect to the data we entered or the records we entered. It will do the changes. It will synchronize the changes with the existing database. So in this case, you can see we defined only undefining one-to-many relationship with the exam term table, but actually we should do we should add a identifying relationship to the student mark record and exam term, because these three attributes, student index number, subject and exam term id, should be the key that defines the duplication of a database. Those three, the same keys cannot be duplicated in this table, not the student index number and subject id. We have to add the exam term id too. So let's do that change and synchronize this change to our database. I'm going to delete this relationship. Okay, and then I'm going to add the identifying one-to-many relationship. Here I define the identifying one-to-many relationship. Let me change the places of the attributes. Okay, I move the exam term id to the top, and you can see these three keys are now working as a compound key, and the same record in these three keys, or the same values in these three keys will not be duplicated again. But if we take the student index number alone, it can be duplicated any time, and also the subject key and the exam key can be duplicated separately, but the same record can't be stored in the database, in the table more than one times. Okay, here we do our change, and let's synchronize this one. I'm going to click on the database, and here's the synchronize module, and then next. Here you have to do you don't have to do anything here. That's next, and here's the database. We are going to make the changes, and here's the new change we are going to add, and let's execute this query. Okay, we execute the synchronization mode without any errors. That means the table should be updated now. Let's refresh this table, and then let's go to the exam mark record. You can see the exam term id is marked as a primary key. Actually, this is not a primary key. These three keys, student index number, subject id and exam term id, are working as a compound key, and also they are foreign to this table. Okay, let's go to add our data. Now let's try to add the same data I entered earlier. Here's the first student. We already recorded that about this student in the first term, and here's the marks of the second term. Here's the same subject id, and here's the second term, and then here's the marks he collect in the second term. And you can see there's no error pop up when we enter the data. That means these three keys, the combination of these three keys cannot be repeat inside this table again. Okay, let's enter the other details now. I think there will be no errors when we entering the details. Here I completed the insert to this index exam mark record, and that's it for this question 18. And I'm going to stop this video, and thank you very much for watching.